Hi, I'm Nigel, developer of AudioSwift. In this tutorial, you're going to see how you can use your trackpad as an MPE controller for Ableton Live. With the introduction of the new MPE support in Live 11, a trackpad with AudioSwift can now be a creative tool for musicians and sound designers. We'll go through the steps to set up AudioSwift in your computer, how to configure MPE with Ableton Live devices and third-party plugins, and in the end, I'll share some tips. This will work with either a MacBook trackpad or an external Magic trackpad. So what is AudioSwift and MPE? AudioSwift for Mac OS is an app that transforms a trackpad into a touch MIDI controller. It has 5 different controller modes, and one of them, the trigger mode, lets you play MIDI notes with velocity in a grid-style controller. The trigger mode comes in 3 different types: drums for playing percussive sounds, chords to play full chords with only one touch, and keys to play sustaining notes with MPE support. AudioSwift creates 3 virtual MIDI inputs that connect to your DAW. The trigger mode uses port 3. AudioSwift runs in the top menu bar waiting to be called. By using a 4 or 5 fingers tap gesture over the trackpad, the console is turned on. A console window appears showing the current controller mode, freezing the mouse pointer and taking control of the computer keyboard inputs. Now we can send MIDI from the trackpad. When we finish, we press the escape key to turn AudioSwift off. MPE stands for MIDI Polyphonic Expression. It allows you to control multiple instrument parameters at the same time, depending on how you move your finger after playing a note. Beside the MIDI notes and their corresponding velocities, the trackpad will also send 3 types of MIDI information: pitch bend with horizontal movements, slide or expression with vertical movements, and pressure or aftertouch by pressing the trackpad. AudioSwift lets you play up to 3 notes at the same time in the trackpad. The pitch bend and the slide information will be sent per each note. The pressure, however, will be applied to all notes, and it will only work with trackpads that support the Apple First Touch feature. In order for MPE to work properly, the software instrument or live device requires to be also MPE compatible. Depending on your version of Ableton Live 11, there are 4 MPE devices available: Wavetable, Sampler, Simpler, and the Arpeggiator. There are also third-party plugins that are MPE ready, like Serum, Diva, and Quanta. Ableton Live also have 2 MIDI Effects devices to apply MPE expression to non-MPE instruments: MPE Control and Expression Control. Configuration: download the latest version of AudioSwift by going to audioswiftapp.com, click the free trial button, and click Download. Open the file and move the app to the Application folder. We need to check the Trackpad Settings at the System Preferences window before we start using AudioSwift. To check this, go to Apple, click System Preferences, then Trackpad, and click More Gestures. What we're looking here is to make sure there aren't any 3 fingers swipe gestures assigned to the trackpad, because it can cause conflicts with the app. 3 finger taps can still be used. Check if there isn't a 3 finger swipe assigned here, 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 and here. If there is, please change it to a 2 or 4 finger swipes instead. When you finish, close the window. I created a shortcut in the dock. Let's launch AudioSwift. If you're using a Mac OS version below Mojave, the AudioSwift icon will appear to your right at the top menu bar. If you're running Mojave, Catalina, Big Sur, or above, AudioSwift requires your permission to control the computer. If we don't do this first, the app won't run. Once we launch AudioSwift for the first time, it will open this dialog box. Click Open System Preferences. It will take you to the Privacy tab under the Security and Privacy section. In case the dialog box doesn't appear, automatically go to Apple, System Preferences, Security and Privacy, and then Privacy tab. In the row Accessibility, we are going to add AudioSwift to the list. At the bottom, click the lock icon. You need to have administrator privilege in the computer to do this. Enter your password and click Unlock. Click the Add button if AudioSwift doesn't already appear in the list. Check AudioSwift and close the window. Launch AudioSwift again and the icon should appear in the top menu bar. Let's open the console window and click the top right star. This will leave the console to be always shown on screen. Change the controller mode to trigger and the type to keys. Select the number of pads you want to divide the trackpad. I choose 15. Now open the trackpad window. This utility window will show us how the pads are divided on the trackpad. Once we get used to them, we don't need to have this window opened. Launch Ableton Live and go to Preferences, Link Tempo MIDI. Look for the AudioSwift MIDI Input 3 and enable all columns, including the last one, MPE. Close the window. For the next example, I'm going to use devices and presets that are only included in the suite version of Ableton Live 11. After showing you how AudioSwift works, later on we'll go through the other examples using MIDI effects and third-party plugins that will work with all versions of Live. In the Sounds category, look for the folder MPE Sounds. Go down and select the preset MPE Velvet Rope. Record the track and go to the arrangement view. Hit the record button and then tap the trackpad with 4 fingers to turn AudioSwift on. Play a note on the trackpad. Move your finger horizontally to change pitch bend. Move it vertically to change the sound. If the trackpad supports force touch, press the trackpad to send aftertouch. Now play 2 notes and start moving the fingers. Notice that the pitch bend and slide information changes separately per each note. When you finish, hit Escape to turn AudioSwift off and then stop recording. This particular preset uses Wavetable. This device has a special tab to tweak how MPE controls the different targets. For example, the pitch bend is set to 48 semitones, but we can reduce it to 12. The slide is controlling the oscillator position and the filter frequency. We can also assign it to other targets. In the console window, each note can be individually changed by typing the note or clicking and dragging. To set a scale, right-click beside the note and choose a scale. Here are some shortcuts for changing notes and scales. Tap one trigger pad while holding the Option key. The note will go up 1 semitone. Hold Shift and Option and it will go down. Press keys C, V, N, or M to transpose all notes 1 semitone at a time. Add Shift to transpose an octave. Tap the trigger pad while holding the Control key or Shift Control key to change the type of scale. AudioSwift is velocity sensitive. In the console window, we can set the maximum velocity of the notes. Type a number, click and drag, or use the key shortcuts up arrow and down arrow. In the bottom right, you set the MIDI channel for the controller. You can use the left and right arrows to change it. However, This MIDI channel number only applies when the trigger mode is not working as an MPE controller. For MPE, the channels are fixed. The aftertouch messages will be sent through channel 1. The first finger touching the trackpad will use MIDI channel 2. The second finger will use channel 3, and the third finger channel 4. This is how the MPE information can be separated per note using different MIDI channels. You can set a different group of notes by using the banks in the bottom of the console. Use shortcuts Z, X, comma, and period to change between banks. Change the type of the trigger mode to play drums or chords by pressing the B key. Use Shift B to change the numbers of pads on the trackpad. Now let's go to the Preferences window and click the trigger tab. Use Fixed Velocity disables the velocity response. Use MPE mode disables or enables the MPE on the trackpad. And you can also disable the X or Y axis controllers individually or change the type of controller. By default, MPE uses Control Change or CC74 for the slide and an initial value of 64. We can change it to a different CC number if the plugin responds to it, and a different initial value. For example, Diva and other synths from UE that are MPE compatible can use CC1 instead of CC74, and it works fine. Now let's look for third-party plugins that support MPE like Serum. Insert the plugin in the track and right-click the header of the device. Make sure Enable MPE mode is checked. In Serum, look for the preset SY Many Fields under the group Synth. Then go to Menu and check MPE Enabled. Choose the option MPE Y to Mod Wheel below. What these options tell you is which Serum parameter is controlled by the X and Y axis and by the aftertouch or Z. Below you can set another pitch bend range. Hit Record, tap the trackpad with a 4-finger tap, and start playing. Moving the finger up and down will affect Serum Mod Wheel. Moving horizontally will affect pitch bend. Hit Escape when you finish and stop recording. You'll notice that Serum disappears from the screen when we activate AudioSwift and comes back when we press Escape. This happens because AudioSwift becomes the key app on screen in order to freeze the mouse pointer, and Ableton Live goes to the background. Live hides all their floating windows at this moment. Unfortunately, there isn't a workaround to avoid this behavior. Diva and other UE synths like Repro 5 and Hive are MPE compatible. However, they don't use CC74 or slide to control a parameter. You'll need to change the Y-axis in AudioSwift to control CC1 or Mod Wheel in Diva. Go to Preferences, Trigger tab, and type 1 for the Y-axis and an initial value of 0. Make sure the device has Enable MPE mode checked. Hit Record and tap the trackpad with 4 fingers to turn AudioShift on. Play with the trackpad. Hit Escape when you finish and stop recording. Just like Serum, the Diva window will also disappear when AudioShift is on. Special note: the aftertouch from AudioShift won't work in MPE mode with UE plugins. This is because UE plugins only accept the aftertouch messages in the same MIDI channel where the note is. As I explained before, the aftertouch in AudioSwift with MPE mode is sent on channel 1, while the notes are on channels 2, 3, and 4. MPE Editing. After a MIDI clip is recorded, open it in Detail View and click the New Expression tab. Here we can edit the MPE performance recorded. Click each note to see the MPE information for that particular note. In the above section is the pitch bend. Here you can move the breakpoints or use the pencil key shortcut B to draw a line. The slide information is in another lane below, and you can edit it the same. Notice that the pressure recorded is not available here. Since the pressure from AudioShift is global, we need to switch to the Envelope tab to see it. On Envelopes, click MIDI Control and look for Channel Pressure. The pressure information will be displayed. MIDI Effects. All versions of Live 11 now come with 2 MIDI effects that are MPE compatible. Expression Control lets you assign the slide to any plugin device that is not MPE compatible. For example, analog. The last finger that touches the trackpad will be the one that controls the slide. MPE Control lets you tweak the response curve of the pitch bend, slide, and pressure. It also assigns them to other devices' parameters that are not MPE compatible. Click the triangle in the bottom right and enable one of the options. For example, slide can control the mod wheel of this analog device, and pitch bend per note can control the global pitch bend. Here are some tips you can use to improve your workflow. Tip number 1. While AudioShift is activated, you can't use your regular key shortcuts to control Live. This happens because AudioShift becomes the key application on screen and Live goes to the background. At this moment, AudioShift is receiving all the computer keyboard inputs. There is a workaround to enable some keys as transport control shortcuts for record, play, and stop. We only need to configure AudioShift as a Mackie controller using the mixer mode. Go to AudioSwift Preferences, Mixer tab. In primary DAW on port 1, choose Live. Close the window. Now go to Live, Preferences, Link Tempo MIDI. Under MIDI port, enable all columns for AudioShift 1 input, except MPE, and also for the output. Under Control Surface, select Mackie Control. As input, select AudioShift 1. As output, select AudioShift 1 again. Close the window. Now turn AudioShift with a 4-fingers tap. Pressing the spacebar will start playing, and pressing R key will start recording. See the user guide or tutorials to learn more about the mixer mode. Tip number 2. There are alternative ways to turn AudioShift on and off. Go to AudioSwift Preferences, General tab. Select Trigger as the default controller mode when AudioShift launches. Also choose another color theme for the console. Down here, we can choose to turn AudioShift on using a 4-fingers tap, a 5-fingers tap, or a hotkey. If you configure the mixer mode in Ableton Live, go to the Mixer tab, and you can enable Turn AudioShift off when playhead stops. AudioShift will be deactivated automatically every time the playhead stops. Tip number 3. Once you get used to the trigger mode, try one of the other controller modes. The mixer mode gives you quick access to the faders and panning for your tracks. The trigger mode also lets you make drum beats and play chords. The scale mode lets you play notes horizontally in a given scale. The slider mode divides the trackpad into virtual sliders that you can use to add expression to virtual instruments. Ableton Live also has a way to instantly map these sliders in AudioShift to control the macros. I have a tutorial explaining the steps to set up this feature. I put links in the description section below. And the XY mode transforms the trackpad into an XY pad to control several synth parameters in 3 dimensions. That's all for this video. I hope you like this tutorial. Thanks for watching.